Hello and welcome to day 30 of 73. And today I wanted to talk about energy. So, today was challenging to say the least. I know I usually have random tiffs with my 4 year old, but today I feel as though he pushed me to the brink where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out. I mean, we started off early on in the morning when waking up, things weren't as peachy or as rosy as they usually are. And then we shifted to a series of, I'd say, verbal skirmishes, mostly coming to me. But I feel as though I did handle it in the best way that I could. I communicated when I needed space, was feeling frustrated, spoke to my wife, leaned in for support and any advice that you might be able to give me in that particular space. But overall, not my finest hour. I didn't shout, I didn't threaten any violence, but I did feel like I wasn't coming through as my best self in those particular instances. And so what I wanted to talk about today was the idea of energy, and especially considering when I'm so in tune and wanting to be very deliberate in how I present my own energy and how that affects the people around me. It is also the main reason why I decided to go on this journey in the first place of self-improvement. And to be quite honest, I think it's something that I'm still having to learn and still having to cultivate in myself. And I'm okay with accepting that it's not always going to be 100%. However, in that same breath, I do believe it is my responsibility to not only notice it when it does happen, but to look at ways in which I can be able to remedy that. And I thought of something that I genuinely don't remember where I heard this first from, but I've heard iterations of it over time as well. And it's the idea of the orange. And they use it as an analogy to talk about what might be internally like resonant in someone and how that spills out as energy. So basically what the analogy talks about is, well, it asks a very obvious question where if you squeeze an orange, what do you expect to come out? And naturally, the answer is orange juice. But before they get to that, they ask, is there an expectation of milk? Or is there an expectation of water? Or any other kind of juice? Naturally, it's no. But that seems to highlight that whatever you have internally is ultimately going to be coming out when you are pressed, or whether you're in a situation where you're now forced to deal with it in whatever capacity. So when you extend that to the human experience, I often look at it as, how patient can you be? How much love do you have internally? And that all comes from how much effort you expend in being able to have that be your default internally, so that when the time comes and push comes to shove, that is the energy that you're sending out to the people that are around you and whoever that you're dealing with in that instance. So it was something that I had to really think about today. And it's something that I've been thinking about constantly during my journey, where the things or the sacrifices and efforts that I put in to this particular journey, it is all ultimately to have a stronger basis from which I act from, and for me to be very, I don't want to say certain, but as close to certainty as possible as far as how I would react and how I would share my energy. So that's something to think about, whether you are pressed in a situation where you're having light skirmishes with a 4 year old, or maybe there is something far less or far more intense that you might need to face. Ask yourself, how am I cultivating that? What are the things that, if I am being pressed in that situation, I'm now able to give as a form of energy? And that's helped me to stay centered and grounded. So I wanted to share that little tidbit, and hopefully tomorrow we are going to be back on the same page, hopefully. But yeah, thank you for your time.